Hey, how's it going? And I just want to make this video because everything is changing inside of Meta. It's moving so fast right now, and I'm seeing this across all these accounts, and we've been doing it for about 3 months now, trying to figure out what system works the best, and we finally figured it out, and I'll be covering that in a separate video. But in this video, we're going to be covering what exactly is that change, why do we need to be aware of it, and how is this going to impact your business as a whole. So jumping right into it, Meta Andromeda is the algorithm update that has taken place, and now this says December 2nd, 2024. As we know, a lot of people were a little bit concerned around January, like Q1, where people were seeing their ad account not perform as well, and things were kind of just a mess, right? And so that was just because we were running on an old structure, leveraging the old algorithm, not the new algorithm that's kind of been layered inside of Advantage Plus, right? So Meta Andromeda supercharging Advantage Plus automation with the next gen personalized ads retrieval engine. If you go to this actual page, it's a lot of jargon, and so it took me a while to kind of decode what exactly was going on. But one of the things that I want to highlight is that the old algorithm was more geared towards audiences and specifically groups of people, right? So if I, am someone that goes to sports bars and I'm around the age of 20 to 30 and I like football, I would be grouped with all the other people that fit that category, right? Some, kind of general affiliation with everyone else. And so the ads were not necessarily as personalized, but they fit a category of people. And so what, the creative flow was you sort of figure out, okay, what category of people works, and you really see the impact of that pretty quickly. Now, Meta's Andromeda update is more geared towards the actual personalization of the individual, not necessarily the group that you're in. And the reason why they didn't do this before was because they just didn't have the actual power to do it in the first place, right? So it went from a CPU, and it actually says right here too, CPU-based platform over to a GPU-based platform. And so Meta Andromeda is GPU, whereas the old is CPU. And so what this means now is that we can actually model users' behavior a lot quicker than we could previously, and we can also model the individual, not the group. And so what that means is that you'll find that the highest value when it comes to, and this is what we found, so this is kind of a gold nugget, the highest value is volume of creative is extremely important because individuals are going to have vastly different preferences. And since the algorithm is going to have more data on individuals, the more essentially you feed it, the better. And creative testing is going to become harder and harder because, like I said, we're maxing out ad sets of like 50 ad creatives. It's crazy right now, and we're getting really good results. But the crazy part about it is that it's not necessarily like once you get to that point where you hit 50 ad creatives, then it gets really difficult to try to figure out what you want to pull out, what you want to actually add, what other system do you want to add into the creative testing side of the equation, because it's so hard to get rid of a creative because it might have worked in the past and now it's not. And since it's individuals that cycle through, it's not as easy to tell where the clusters of people are when it comes to which ad creative is working properly, which ad creative is going to work the best. And so it's good and bad. I would say that Andromeda is really good for earlier stage marketers. So if you're a smaller business under, let's say 100K a month gross MRR, then you're probably loving this. If you're a larger business, you're probably loving this if you have the right data stream. So that'll be a separate video, but that's just something that I think needs to be covered, and I could talk about that for hours, but yeah. Anyways, so an example of this from a creative perspective is, let's say that you're someone that, bought a hotel and you're renting a hotel room, and you essentially are saying, okay, I bought this hotel room by the beach and I plan to go in like a month or whatever. Facebook is going to understand, okay, this person has purchased a hotel by the beach. What is this individual wanting in addition to that? And it's going to serve the ads a lot faster that are more personalized. Maybe things like they probably want sunscreen. Maybe they want aloe vera. Maybe they want more, beach wear, whatever the case is, travel stuff. And so it's going to look at your specific interactions to ads to then better determine what specifically you're going to be looking for. So if you like video ads and you've watched a video ad for clothing, but you haven't necessarily clicked on the ad, but you bought a hotel, maybe it'll prioritize serving you clothing over sunscreen. And so there's those insights that are now going to be tailored towards the individual versus it being something on the lines of, hey, people that tend to buy hotels tend to buy beach products. Let's just serve bulk and let's see which ad wins, right? It's going to be way, way more geared towards the habits of the user and the interactions they had with what they bought previously. And it's going to be a lot faster, right? So we're not looking at someone that bought, a hotel, let's say like 2 months ago or a month ago, and you're serving them ads because they're in that audience, right? And they're showing, some of those signs. And so this is going to be, we're talking like instant understanding of exactly what's going on. And I think this is going to be really beneficial for businesses that know their current ICP, just because they can really speak to those clusters of people, but in an individual way, where the ads themselves are going to be so diverse that it's going to be able to pair up the ad with the user in the most efficient way possible, versus you trying to cycle, like I said, chunks of creative types. And so the biggest thing with this is that creative diversity is going to become the most important thing ever, because it's going to allow the algorithm to go after individuals and not groups. So think of it like, you have a creative with someone that's really young, you have a creative with someone really old, a boy, a girl, and, trying to say, okay, this ad is talking more towards, the features, and now this one's talking more towards the emotional side and like the founder story, things like that. And so it's not going to be necessarily a ad account that'll have more, specific creatives that are winning in the category. It's going to try to be as diverse as possible to give, like I said, this new algorithm the ability to reach out to individuals based on its data. And it's going to get crazier and crazier. I mean, this is like, we scaled so many accounts over the past 2 months just from this update, because the first 3 months have just been chaos, and now it's starting to get to the actual position where we're seeing the builds work. We're in contact with meta disruptors, which is like that really high tier group that allows us to understand exactly what is working for these large spend accounts. We have access to larger data sets, which then allow us to better understand the structure earlier than that of the market. And so that's one of the things that we have in our group, where we kind of cover how exactly we get to that point, and we give you updated strategies from that group as well too. But I think, just for like context, every single person needs creative diversity. It's no longer about finding groups of people. It's about just trying to have as much individualism as possible when it comes to the diversity of creative, the most different creatives that you can possibly make, because it's building a system, like I said, towards individuals. And you might have a top of funnel style creative that might act as a bottom of funnel creative for a different individual based on their habits. So I'm really like, this has been really fun to deal with, just because it's been one of those things to where creative is like the bottleneck, and it's always been the bottleneck. But for clients that have good creative, but maybe have a lower ad spend, or have a really good brand, but are trying to get their foot in the market, it's a lot easier to get into the market now. So the biggest thing now, at least from an ad perspective or an ad management perspective, is how can we pair this system with other systems like Google, and what omni-channel sort of drives the real growth from a new customer acquisition, not just the ROAS side of the equation. So with that being said, I have a school community with John where we actually go over these changes, as well as if you're curious and you want to see some case studies, we have another channel right over here where we go over specifics. So most YouTube channels don't really do that because they just talk and they don't really have case studies to back it up, or they just show screenshots. So if you guys want to see if we're the real deal, you can check out this other channel over here where we kind of go over in depth exactly what we're changing, what has been seen. So you don't have to take my word for it that I'm telling you right now. And just keep in mind that that channel is going to be more advanced. So we don't necessarily have as much hand-holding. It's more so just taking you on the ride when it comes to that. So you'll still get the same information over here, but it'll be, like I said, just kind of at a here's what we got, here's what we're doing, versus a here's how it happened and proof of it kind of thing. So anyways, thanks again, and I will see you guys in the next video.